off as ZvZ, and I actually switched to random about a year, maybe a year and a half ago. So that's been going really well for me, and I love the diversity. You know, not getting stuck with only 3 matchups over and over again. So yeah, I always try to tell my opponent my race before the game because otherwise I feel like a dirty person. But
you're so mannered compared to every random player I ever play. Anyway, go ahead and take it away.
All right, you guys, spawning here on the left-hand side of Metropolis, IPL's version of the map, we do have our blue ZvZ player coming in for StarTale. It's going to be Life. And on the right-hand side of the same map, Metropolis, we do have the red ZvZ player. It is GL Snute.
I feel like I should be doing the whoosh, although I can't do it quite as well, but anyway. Yeah, so Snute versus Life, we have another ZvZ, and, you know, we're not casting the Crank versus the winner of Seed versus Pung Pung like we thought we were, but you know what? Darn, we only get to cast the reigning GSL code as champion, so I guess we'll have to deal with that.
Pretty fantastic match, if you ask me, and looks like...
Oh, yep, there we go. You are absolutely right. Boom! Now we're good to go.
No problem. We were planning on a couple of Protoss players or Protoss versus ZvZ, and in fact, we do have a ZvZ versus ZvZ coming up here, so should be a pretty fast-paced matchup. You know, the standard, of course, in this matchup is going to be pool into hatch, but sometimes we see early pools in cross positions like this. We're probably not going to see anything like that. Metropolis being a very, very large map.
Looks like Snute probably saving up for his 14 pool that he likes so much. Now, Snute's, of course, a player who loves going for his... he loves going for roaches all the time. When in doubt, roaches. That's just kind of his plan. He'll even throw in infestors a little bit later. He'll try to be pretty aggressive with small packs of roaches early. He'll completely bypass banelings, and he gets around that, of course, by getting early scouting information with the use of these zerglings that'll pop out a little bit earlier on to make sure, you know, in the event that his opponent did decide to go hatch first, which StarTale Life has done, and if he adds on that baneling nest, that he's not going to take too much pressure because he can pick up on exactly when it's supposed to happen.
And one thing that Life did that I'd want to point out, because it's very, very smart, is on this map, your Overlord gets to your opponent's close air positions very quickly, and you can actually go hatch first before pool if you notice that in time instead of going 15 pools. So a very, very cool little, like, let's look and see where my opponent is and go hatch first because he's cross.
And Life ended up going for, once he saw that it wasn't, you know, cross positions or anything like that, he did end up going for gas just before his pool too, so he's prioritizing his speed. He wants to make sure he has that 100 gas right away. And this is actually what we saw out of him in an earlier match too. Excuse me.
Sure. Yeah, and you know, we're going to have a pretty even match here. Snute's gas actually is going to be a little bit late. He hasn't even started it, and Life already has 50 gas on the map, so his speed's going to be done, of course, a lot quicker here as that 100 gas will come in as his pool completes. And yeah, we'll have to see how Snute wants to play this out. You can kind of wall off that natural a little bit with Evo chambers and stuff like that.
Yeah, and Snute loves his walled off. What he'll usually do in a game is he'll produce 3 queens, then we'll see an evolution chamber there, a roach warren there, and 2 queens just to block that up right in the middle. So he has thrown in variations of that, but if he's playing his normal standard game, that's what he's going to go with.
Absolutely, and that does leave the roach warren a little bit prone to being sniped and stuff, but it is a pretty cheap building. It does build relatively quickly. You just have to make sure that you start making roaches before it goes down if your opponent does in fact decide to target that.
Well, that hatchery is now finished up, and we'll see what Snute does, although, like I said, wouldn't expect anything too out of the ordinary. He's building his 2nd and 3rd queen, just like we thought he would. Life, on the other hand, we mentioned that this was a possibility. Oh, looks like we have a little bit of a pause, so no worries there. He says he just needs to take a quick second, so we'll pop back to you guys. You can see our wonderful faces once again.
And all these computers are different, and it looks like actually Snute is ready to go already. That was very fast.
Yeah.
Probably just changing the graphic settings and making sure it's all set to his liking. You know, what bothered me for a long time, actually, was that the creep was too shiny on the high settings.
Yes, I noticed that, and especially when you go to some of the maps where, don't get me wrong, map makers try to be very artistic, add their own flair into it, but sometimes you get the ones that just throw like weird random filters everywhere, and then you're like, well, I can't actually tell what color the player is, and it looks like there's just lens flare.
Yeah, absolutely. All right, well, yeah, it looks like we have a roach warren coming down for Snute with his first 2 gases, actually. Very, very late gases out of Snute here. And, of course, speed and a baneling nest are about to finish for Life, and that means that Snute's not going to have any kind of baneling defense or anything like that. He does have 3 queens on the map with a 4th on the way, so that's going to be his entire defense for just a little while here as Life is making a ton of zerglings. Looks like he wants to get very aggressive.
That's right. So he is droning up behind this as well, so it's not like this is a big all-in zergling baneling push, but he does want to get some damage done. He wants to get it done pretty quick. His speed is finished. He has a lot of advantages over his opponent, and Snute has not put his evolution chambers outside of this wall to be able to defend. In fact, he just retreats completely with his drones, and he's going to plan to hold with just queens.
Wow. And yeah, Life can kind of just sit out here with Banelings and force Snute to, make some roaches and get them out to fight this off. And actually, these Zerglings actually taking out 2 queens, as the queens had no energy for transfusion here. His ramp is under a little bit of fire, but it looks like these roaches should be able to force this back, and it looks like all 4 queens get taken out, so Life's going to have a huge larva advantage as Zerglings come into the main. That's
right, and Snute now needs to run away, or at least gather these drones up so he can present some sort of a unified wall against him. He's already lost 3, so Life's damage has been dealt. 4 workers have gone down in total. I think 1 was a scout earlier on in this game. So Snute down in workers, a bit ahead in tech, but this is usually why you put up that defensive Baneling nest, is you want to be able to ward these off pretty cost effectively.
Yeah, and Life in the meantime is going for that lair, so we could see anything from very fast infestors to mutas at this point. He's only got 2 gases right now. He is adding a 3rd and 4th. So with no 3rd base, I do think this is going to be 2-base muta for just a second here. Roach Warren comes down. That's very interesting. Usually you can hold off a minuscule number of roaches with Speedlings just alone.
Yeah, and we'll see what he ends up following this up with. Probably, throwing down, if the Roach Warren hadn't been put down, yeah, you're probably looking at the Spire, but there's a decent possibility now we'll see that Infestation Pit hitting pretty quickly after this. He'll probably prioritize out those upgrades and maybe double Evo Chambers here in just a minute, too. There's 1 Evo Chamber, and no, never mind. That's actually just going to be a 3rd base.
Okay, well, he's got 300 gas banked up, so that Infestation Pit can start immediately here. He hasn't started it quite yet, though. He's using the minerals on his hatchery, and let's see what the tech choice is, because obviously he made that lair for something, and it looks like Roach Speed is the first thing he chooses, but still 300 gas in the bank.
Yeah, Glio Reconstitution, and we're going to see +1 weapons here momentarily, so he'll have some upgrades that are on the way, but of course he will be eventually banking gas for that eventual Infestor switch. Now, Snute, on the other hand, he decided to bypass all of those Banelings. He took a little bit of loss in workers, and he is still down by 8 at the moment, but it doesn't seem like he's all that concerned with it, because he still has a pretty good standing force. He's still got his layer tech underway, and because of the fact that he invested in his roaches a little bit earlier, not that far behind as far as tech goes.
We also need to keep in mind that he did have to pull all of his drones into his main for a while, so he lost a lot of mining time, because he was oversaturated in that main for quite a while, and there's the Infestation Pit for Life as the lair completes for Snute. So Snute with +1/+1 on the way might have a little bit of an opening when a +1 armor does complete if Life hasn't, really masked up the roaches for defense yet.
And Life's going to try and take a look around here, and he gets a pretty good scout. I mean, that's as good as he could have expected right there. He didn't think he was going to get into the main, so he just checks things out. I don't think he picked off 1 more worker right there.
All right, well, the rocks are going down for Snute. As everyone can see here, Life's 3rd has completed, as Snute's is about to finish in just a second here. Infestor Pathogen Glands is on the way here for Life, and yeah, still no tech for lair tech out of Snute yet, except for that Roach Speed.
Yeah, so he's going to be a little bit behind on his initial upgrade, as in about 45 seconds, Life is going to finish up +1 weapons, but if he can delay for another 45 seconds after that, he'll actually be at an upgrade advantage, because he is investing into his Carapace at the same time. Oh, but Life is just going to gun it for this upgrade. He gets it. That's actually going to set Snute back quite a bit.
Wow, and the Roach Speed is going to allow him to get a better concave if he does decide to fight, and he can run at any point. And wow, getting both of those Evo Chambers is actually a big deal. Now he's going to have +1 and +2 on the way before Snute's even started +1. Another engagement from Life as he thinks he has enough roaches to take this out. A good concave from Snute is going to force him back, but no chasing capability quite yet.
That was a huge development, though. Taking out those 2 upgrades when they were a good portion of the way done, that provides a massive advantage for Life. And anytime we have what looks like it could be an equitable engagement is actually going to be vastly in the favor of Life. Add on top of that, he's got 5 Infestors popping up now. He's got +2 weapons. Everything is hitting for this guy right now.
All right, well, let's take a look at the worker count and see exactly how far ahead Life might be. It's 55 to 50 at the moment, and a couple links come in. May have picked off another drone or 2 in the mineral line there. Snute cleans it up very quickly, and his Roach Speed is done, so he's going to be more maneuverable, especially with those rocks down to help defend his 3rd. In the meantime, +1 is on the way now for Snute, and +2 is on the way for Life. So Life taking a pretty decisive lead. What's the roach count at, Kevin?
Roach count overall is 38 to 20, but that's because that the reason that that's the case is that Life has voluntarily been setting back his units to invest into his infestors and upgrades at the moment. So not saying that it's the best situation he wants to be GM, but I'm saying that that's not all that bad because these fungal growths are really tearing through these roaches.
Yeah, they really are, and keeping a lot of the roaches from firing so that Life actually has a roach advantage for a long period of time. All of these roaches for Snute are in the red, and yeah, Life is going to push this back even with a much lower roach count, simply because all of these roaches for Snute would die so quickly. Snute, realizing that it's really low on health on all these roaches, does start burrow so that he can heal them up at home with burrow movement.
Yeah, that's really his only recourse right now. He is going to have a moment where he'll be on even upgrades with his opponents, but he's not able to reinforce this easily. This would get taken out by a very small pack of roaches themselves, and if that were to happen, it could very well be GG. So Snute needs to sit back, he needs to hold for a little bit, he needs to make sure that he can get on equal tag with his opponent. Does he have an infestation pit?
I don't think so.
No. Okay, there it is. Just started.
Yeah, all right. Well, Snute taking out these rocks here to get a better concave if, in fact, Life does decide to attack, and that is definitely a good idea because Life, of course, has the lower roach count, but the infestors, so you want to be able to get that surround so that you don't get bunched up and all your roaches caught at the same time, of course. And Life pushing in here with an Overseer now. Going to clean up some of this creep. Creep, of course, not going to be too big of an issue here, but oh, we got pretty close to an engagement there. Yes,
we did. And Life wants to delay for just a couple more seconds. He's got a couple of fungal growths now, but if he can add on any more... No, actually, he's just going to gun it. He actually has a little bit of an anti-timing because of the fact that they're on even upgrades right now. Snute can stand in there a little bit longer, but he didn't regen much of the health of any of these roaches. So Life, even with the inferior concave, is still killing a little bit more than I think he normally would have. His reinforcements are coming pretty well, though you can see that he's reinforcing double the amount of units that his opponent is producing. So a little bit of an anti-timing there. Life, if he waited another like 10 or 15 seconds, would have actually had a little bit better engagement for him. So Snute does hold for the time being, but he's still down overall.
Yeah, and Snute actually still with no infestors out on the map is only going to be pushing across the map with these roaches here. He is making more drones, so I don't think he's going to fully commit to this. He shouldn't, because there is a fungal growth, and yeah, 5 more roaches get caught for free there. He does pick off an infestor. Very nice snipe.
Yeah, I mean, making the best of a bad situation, yeah, I suppose. So. If your roaches are going to go down anyway, you might as well take something while they're swinging. So now Snute, just working off of these 3 bases, he's got a lot of gas built up, and his pathogen glands are finally on the way. Once that gets 30 seconds of the way done, he can start those infestors up and start to really add on some meat to his army. And he needs it because Life's going to a 4th base. Life has some pretty great upgrades. He's already got +2 weapons going to +2 or +1 carapace, and adding on all the hatcheries he needs for really late game production.
Absolutely. Snute's taking his 4th as well, but Life does currently have a 40 supply lead almost, and this is looking pretty scary because 7 infestors are on the way for Snute, but he's going to need a great engagement before these infestors come out to kind of push Life back for that second for the infestors to get ready for himself.
Okay, well, here comes Life now. The concave is already set up for Snute, but look how small that force is compared to what Life's bringing up to the front, and this is a great time to move in because the 7 infestors are just not there, and without those infestors, Life is going to be able to steamroll through the front line of forces. He's reinforcing pretty efficiently as well, and Snute is just losing everything.
Yeah, the upgrade and fungal advantage here is really showing its true colors as wow, Life already in the natural, killing off a queen that's going to hamper the production of Snute by so much. Fungal's coming down on the infestors that just get made, but they get sniped on the ramp, and Snute, I think, down to only 3 infestors now. He's losing everything in his natural and gives out the GG.
All right, so that's game number 1 in the bag, and Life, the